Three, two, one. Robotics
Robotics
Assemble.
Assemble.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Robotics Assemble, the Saints Robotics podcast. And today I'm with Mr. Moore and Miss Young. And today we're going to be talking about basically the club as a whole and how it changed so much in a long time. So these two amazing people are our mentors, are one of our oldest mentors. And
Safe to say oldest.
yeah, and they've been here, I think, the longest. Correct me if I'm wrong. So
No,
yeah,
you're
let's
right.
get to know them a little bit better. So please introduce yourself and tell me your favorite food.
Okay, I'm Helen Young, and my favourite food are the Saints Robotics potlucks.
Yes.
And I'm Tim Moore, and I think I'd probably pick curries.
All right. Awesome. So yeah, for my favorite food, it would definitely have to be our um our ramen. Definitely the ramen at
Oh,
Robotics.
yeah,
Because the ramen is there is just perfect. You know, you're working on it, and then you have the ramen. It's
yeah,
it's the perfect occasion to eat the ramen.
yeah. We've been eating it at home, or at least I brought some home for my
Nice.
son. Yeah,
Oh yeah, and about the potlucks, when Miss
yeah.
Sung says potlucks, every Friday before COVID and when we actually were meeting, every Friday we had during build season we had potlucks, and everyone just bring type food, and then we would just share and eat it. It was actually a pretty epic time.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
I got to eat all sorts of things that I would never have eaten otherwise because of all your parents cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. So yeah, let's get right into the questions, I guess. So, how long have you guys been at Saints Robotics?
a long time.
A long time.
2007, I think, was the first season.
2007. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What year was that? What game was that? I don't
Um,
Okay.
Overdrive.
Overdrive. So
I had to go and look it up.
Yeah, we've done some research here.
yeah, nice.
So that
So
was Club's second season.
club's second
They did
season. So,
they did one before I joined.
all right. So that was right at the conception of the club. It's still like a new club that was being established.
How many people were in the club? The first year there were 5 people. So that
Five
was the year
people.
before me. There was, I think, 5 people.
Yeah.
And the year I joined, it was around 10 to 12.
10 to 12. All right.
No,
And then now we have what?
No, not the first year.
60 members?
Yeah,
Something like
I
that.
think
Yeah.
you've got 65 on the
65.
roster currently.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a big increase.
It
Like,
is, and this is actually low. We've had higher. I think we've
oh,
been up into the
really?
80s and so. Yeah,
Dang.
yeah.
Wow. So we've been peaking. I think it's because of COVID and this year just not being in school that
Oh, yeah.
we probably got a decrease, but definitely that once we go back to school, we're definitely gonna hit that increase again. 150 members,
Okay.
biggest club in all of the school.
That'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, Miss Young, I heard that you joined a year after Mr. Moore, or
Well,
a couple of
it was
years.
the same season, but towards the end of the
I see.
season when
I
they
see.
needed chaperones to go to competition.
I see. I
And I
see.
guess that last build season, we were actually talking about this today. So we stopped the bag. You stopped building the robot, and that was during midwinter break, and we couldn't use school.
Oh.
And so it was actually done in our garage, and our driveway was the practice field. And that year, it was a crating system. So have you heard of the bag when the robot went into the bag?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So prior to that, it actually got put into a crate and fastened into a crate, and FedEx turned up and took it away.
Oh.
So you couldn't even look at it.
No, that's very sad. You
Yeah.
can't look at it and be like, oh,
Yeah.
that part's
And
a little bit
then
off.
when you got to your pit, lo and behold, there was your crate in the pit.
Ah.
So you didn't have to transport it either, which was the good side of that. So that all happened at our house. The last
Oh.
sort of few days of build, the practicing, the crating, and then FedEx came and took it away from our house that first year. So I was a little involved then, feeding people mostly, I think. And then I thought, well, I'll go and sit in the bleachers at, where were we? In Tacoma. And, I can be a body and be a responsible adult, perhaps. But it was just so exciting and so enthralling in competition, watching all these robots running around doing whatever they needed to do. And we can talk about that. But the thing that fascinated me most was that after every single match, a team of people ran onto the field and picked up all the little pieces that had fallen off. And that happened at every competition.
Yeah.
Nobody had the I don't know, they just didn't have the wherewithal to make it stay together.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that's changed over the years.
I thought that him joining robotics was a really good idea because it would mean that there wouldn't be as much or as many bits of robots around the house, but that just not worked. That totally backfired.
It increased the amount of robotics inside the house, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And tools and all sorts of things, but that's fine.
It's for the greater.
Oh, yeah. So, I was just going to say there's a couple of interesting stories about that first year. One of them was when the robot left here in the crate, it didn't actually drive.
Oh no.
So it was one of the first things we had to do when we get to the competition is to get the robot out the crate and make it work.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's recently at least they tend to work before we have to put them in the bag.
Yeah.
But in the early years, they tended to turn up either not working or just about working.
Was that like with all the teams too? So it's like half the people are there just working on their robot trying to make it work?
Yeah, it varied a lot. There were always a few really good teams, but over the years, the majority of the teams have come up in how they turn up. So there was one year, 2 or 3 years after we started, a team turned up at the competition thinking part of the competition was to put the robot together.
Oh
So they
no.
turned up with a bunch of pieces.
I see.
And a
So
lot of teams jumped into the pit and helped them put their robot together. They actually were on the field and driving around by the end of the competition, but it took a lot of teams a lot of work.
I see. So it's like, wait, so they thought that you built the robot there as well?
Correct.
So then they come to the competition and they see all these people already built their robots. So they're either like, dang, these guys are cheating, or dang, these guys are really fast at building their robots.
Yeah. So there was that one, and then there was one year somebody turned up and missed the 120-pound rule.
By how much?
And their robot was over 250 pounds.
Okay, so they just piled everything onto there.
There was a large chunk of steel plate in the robot.
Okay, don't run into that robot.
Yeah. Well, so one of the lead mentors for Xbot, I think, came in with a big sawzall and chopped the robot in half.
And did it still work?
They had no manipulator, but it was underweight and it was driving around.
All right. Okay. No, that works. At least they were able to participate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the big differences, I think, is in the early days, there'd be practice matches in the morning, the first day. And for the first few matches, you'd be lucky if 2 or 3 teams actually were on the field, because they all had to get through inspection. Nowadays, teams are certainly getting through inspection way faster. The quality, all around has come up in leaps and bounds.
Yeah, it's like because people have been building up on like last year's team and like last year's robots and stuff, so they're able to get faster and like able to build better stuff.
Yeah,
and technology also has gotten better.
Right, and rookie teams have much more of a support system because all the other teams around them want to support them and help them.
Yeah. Yeah, because I can't. I like. Wait, was it back then that we started with the wood robot?
That
That was a few
was
years later.
That was a few years
um,
later. So we had metal robots before that.
Yeah.
the early robots were mostly kit robots.
Okay, kit robots. All right.
So
And
I
then
think probably 2010, the base was a kit and the manipulator was all wood. And that was the
okay,
first time we really went down the wood track.
I see. I see. So it's like, and then since then we've been adding, making a lot of parts of our robot out of wood and stuff.
Right. And part of it was that year, 2010, we got to Worlds with that robot. So we did
Ah,
well.
yeah.
And then the first time we did a complete wooden robot, which was 2013, we got to Worlds.
Ah. So it's the wood. It's the sentiment. It's gonna get us back to
Something.
worlds.
Yeah.
Partly that, but also partly, certainly the 2013 one, the game was set up so that a wooden robot worked well.
Mm.
So sometimes a wooden robot doesn't work well for the game. Something in the
Ah.
mechanics makes it hard. But sometimes it works really well. And certainly 2013 was the one where you had to throw frisbees, and we found that worked really well for a wooden robot. So you
That's
could build a
nice.
really good wooden robot. And that's what we found over the years. Some years a wooden robot works really well, and some years there's something you need that's really hard to do in wood.
Yeah. And especially because like if you run into another robot, your robot is at a significant disadvantage because
Yeah.
you're made out of wood, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So,
What?
well, that year in one of the early competitions, Scott Watson had us hit full speed in the middle of the field.
Ah, the pain.
We were both going flat out down the field, opposite directions when we hit.
Oh no.
But the following, that happened to be our last match of the day, and we were on
Okay.
the field the following day.
Okay.
We did have
Dang.
to do some repair work, but we were on
Yeah.
the field next match. The next match we had to be on, we were on the field.
We
That's nice.
sped through a lot of epoxy.
A lot of
Yeah.
epoxy.
Yeah. Should
Is
have had
it?
shares in it.
Was it easier to fix the wooden robots than like the metal robots that we have right now?
It depends. There's a, so the question really is, metal for its weight is probably stronger,
Yeah.
but once you've bent a piece of metal, you have to replace it.
Yeah.
So what tends to happen with wood is it tends to flex.
Ah.
So until it breaks, it can take quite a lot. But when it breaks, you have a
I-
problem. Now, the
Yeah.
first time we did it, which was Blue Scorpion, we actually deliberately designed weak points into it. So when it broke, it snapped at a very specific point and we knew how to fix it.
Okay.
So that one, we had an arm that would reach out, the robot. And we actually had one time somebody drove into the arm
Yeah.
and it broke at exactly the point we expected it to. And we just replaced that piece and went on the field again.
Yeah, that's nice. The design really needs to be more thought out, I guess, with wood robots.
You can get away with a lot with metal robots
Yeah.
that you really can't get away with for wood. We did in the early days when we used wood a lot. We spent a lot of time working out where the strengths and weaknesses were.
All right. That's nice.
Now, a lot of the modern games, like last year's, if you think about it, there's a lot of pieces to the game. So you need lots of little mechanisms on the game to do all the little pieces.
Yeah.
And wood mechanisms tend to be bigger than metal mechanisms. So
Yeah.
you would run into a space problem. Some of
Yeah.
the early games, you did less things.
Hmm.
So being a bit bigger wasn't a problem. Whereas last year would have been a kind of a big issue if we tried to make it out of wood because there was lots
The
and lots of
trench.
things we were all trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. And like if as you said a big robot and then the trench was a very small place to get through. So like
Right.
we would probably not even be able to go through the trench last year
Yeah.
if we made it out of
So
wood.
that's one of the trade-offs you have to make is that I said if you didn't have that and you didn't have all the different mechanisms you wanted, wood may have been a good choice. But that particular choice set didn't work well for last year's robot.
Yeah. So talking about like the club. So we talked about like first in general how it changed, like all the robots. But like how did the club itself change from its conception to like now? So like specifically about like members and like I guess like the place of the club in the school and like demographics.
Okay. The place is probably easiest to follow, isn't it? Because we
Right.
started out in that corner classroom, 18 something,
06?
09,
The one at the
right
far
on the,
end,
sorry,
the far end of the tech block, the furthest
Okay.
away from the rest of the school.
I don't even know what it is now. It was Mr. Cooney's computer lab.
All right, the computer labs. All right.
Yeah.
Right.
And because it was his room and he was the teacher, I don't know how he used his whiteboard, because that was like the old robot graveyard almost in front of the whiteboards. And we'd be leaving pieces between meetings. We left pieces out all over the place, all down the side cupboards and things. And we had cupboards in the back of the classroom to store stuff. And then when he left, we had different teachers, and it wasn't necessarily their room any longer we were using. And so everything had to go away. Do you remember having to clean everything away after every single meeting? Or have
I
you been at
wasn't. I
Ivanhoe
wasn't.
all?
I've been at Ivanhoe the entire time.
Okay, right. So then so now we're guests, as it were, in somebody's classroom. And so after every single meeting, the last probably 30 minutes was spent cleaning everything up and packing it all away.
Oh.
Which meant shoving it into cupboards and we had a space in the closet outside the room, and then we had the shed thing, bit of space in the shed. So people were working. We had the workbench on wheels. We'd wheel it outside. People would work out in the rain and the snow.
In the rain?
Yeah. And if you wanted, to do anything with the robot in a space, we had to use the cafeteria. So then you had to get your game pieces round to the cafeteria, and you had to get the robot round to the cafeteria, and so on. And then there'd be people walking through as you're doing whatever you need to do with your robot.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest part of that was just always feeling as though you were in someone else's space and having to be mindful of that and put everything away. So, imagine what it would be like at robotics now if you had to put everything away totally at the end of every meeting and clean up perfectly, every surface wiped down, etc.
That would take forever.
Yeah. And because you've shoved it away, you really don't know what you've got and where it's gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it would be harder the next meeting to find everything, I guess.
And people didn't want us we just weren't wanted in people's classrooms. And I mean, I used to be a teacher, and I totally understand that. You want to be able to walk in the morning as the teacher and know that your classroom is usable.
You don't want to clean this stuff up, right?
Right, yeah. And I can remember the time when the programming group I don't know what they'd done, but the teacher the following morning could not use their projector, and, spent the whole first period trying to get their electronics or all their technology set up again correctly.
Oh, no.
So you can imagine the feedback we got from that.
The anger.
Yeah. Or one room we moved desks, and if they didn't go back in exactly the right spot, that was not good. So, yeah, it was all understandable from the teacher's point of view.
Yeah.
But it was a huge relief when we got the space. We got Ivanhoe.
Yeah, Ivanhoe.
Yeah.
And Ivanhoe is very like spacious too, and then it's just our place, right? So we could just work on it.
Yeah.
Leave stuff exactly where they are so it doesn't get lost, of course. Not because we are lazy and we don't want to clean up. It's just
right.
Right.
We want to know where everything is.
Yeah.
But it seems like you can set up the field.
Yeah.
And you don't have to set it up, and you don't have to design all the field pieces so that we can pack them up and move them to the shed every night.
Yeah, that big rocket like that we have in the thing,
Right.
that wouldn't be a thing anymore, I guess.
No, we probably wouldn't have been able to do that.
We
Yeah.
would have made something that had the holes, but not correct, simply so we can make it lighter and put it away.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
used to do that fairly regularly, is look at the field piece and redesign it so that we only had the piece we needed for the piece of the game we were playing.
I see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess the place has been a big improvement for robotics, right?
Huge.
Huge,
Huge.
because it's like now we have all this different sections. What did business do before? Um,
They were
I
probably one classroom,
I see.
or I mean, I can remember groups sitting in the corridor, on the floor in the corridor outside, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So there really was not, there wasn't a cohesive team that we have now,
I see. I
certainly.
see.
Yeah.
So
And,
yeah,
you couldn't move and work on one thing very easily and then go and see what's programming doing. And programming had absolutely no idea what the robot looked like or anything. So,
oh
they're
no,
programming something they have no idea about, really.
oh no, they're just like, all right, there should be a motor here, so we're
Yeah.
just gonna program for the motor, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's also like I would assume like getting the group together would be a little bit more difficult because now we could just yell loudly and then
Yeah.
everyone would just like come to their attention and be like, oh, all right, it's time to like circle up or something.
Yeah.
Versus like then I guess it's like span the entire like 1800 wing or something, right? So
Yeah.
like
Right.
I
you would
think
have
we,
to
And
go
probably some in the cafeteria too, and
and
outside. Yeah.
a lot of running around, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
At least they got to work out, you know. At least they got to
That's
work.
true. Yeah. Yeah. We didn't have a nice cozy spot to sit in and sort of just watch what's going on, but
Yeah.
it's made it a lot easier to be, personally, I'm much happier to sit all day there, to be all there all day because I don't feel as though I'm in somebody else's space.
Yeah,
Or the
cuz
teacher is actually, some evenings the teacher would still be there trying to get grading done or whatever. And we're trying to saw wood, drill holes, all this sort of stuff.
they're just watching in horror of
Yeah.
what is happening to their room.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So how's the attitude of like like Saints Robotics changed since like how like from 2007 I guess to now? Like did we have the same type of attitude when it comes to competition and like awards and stuff?
It's probably ups and downs or ebbs and flows maybe is a better way of putting it. Some years have been certainly more focused on awards. Some have been more focused on the process. Some have been more focused on keeping the more junior members
Mm.
occupied, or not occupied but engaged, I think is an important thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I like. I like the way it changes, but I also like the way it has changed and the direction it's going at the moment. I really like.
Yeah.
And some of that I think is the leadership team. Each year the leadership team changes and the focus of the club kind of moves slightly with them.
Mm.
So there'll be a few years when the core leadership team was mostly about building the robot.
Yeah.
And there'll be some years where it is mostly around how do we get new people in. And so over the years, you would see the leadership team impact what was happening with the club.
I see.
And it's not wrong. It's just, it was interesting watching how people's focus, because some of it will be what's going well at the time, what haven't we done well, let's focus there. And some
Yeah.
of it was, it depends on who the leaders were at the time. Some of
Yeah.
them wanted to focus on the robot and some of them were focused elsewhere.
Yeah, I guess that's interesting because like it is like a student-led club, right? So
Right.
like it's basically what the students think, I guess.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they feel like maybe one year like a major problem was different than the other year, so then they focus on that more.
Yeah.
Right,
So yeah, it's very it's like normal politics. Everything changes at
right.
certain time.
It's kind of interesting, actually, having been there so long, but being the type of people that are not, we don't want to run you. We don't want to lead the club. We don't want to tell you which direction you need to go. And so it really is interesting to watch the way it goes and to help you run it the way you want to run it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always nice getting advice, especially because you guys have been here much longer than us. So you know where like it fails, like if we, or like where it doesn't go so well if we like focus on that, or like too much on a certain
Right.
point.
But there is the side of things that says maybe it didn't work last time, but that doesn't mean that you guys can't make it work.
Yeah. So it's kind of like hindsight, right? We're able to ask you about like
Yeah.
what went wrong that time, so we can improve on it this time
Hopefully, yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly. I've certainly made a comment, especially around build, is the fact that you try to do something that failed. Here were the reasons why it failed last time.
Yeah.
If you just go in with you want to do this, you should go in with what are you doing different this year that won't fail the same way.
Yeah. Don't fail the same way.
Yeah.
Fail a
Yeah,
different way, but not the
Yeah.
same
yeah. If you want to go that, it's not a problem going down the same approach before. Just don't fail for the same reason that we failed last time. Pick a
way. Yeah.
different way to approach the problem.
Pick
Pick
a
a
different.
different way to fail, but no, we don't want to fail.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
Even
you're right.
failing is not that big of an issue as long as you learn from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as long as you don't do the same thing again,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
as long as we improve upon it. So yeah.
Yeah.
How has the demographics of robotics changed? Like the people inside the club.
Yeah. I'm trying to think how it's changed.
So there's a couple of things that I've noticed is that I'm generalising a bit, but if you look at the very early years, predominantly boys. The first year there was one girl.
Ah.
Then we got a lot of girls in, so the ratio between boys to girls was still more boys than girls, but it wasn't 50-50, but it was like over 40-60. And actually, we got asked for at a lot of competitions over a few years as to how we managed to get so many girls into the team. A lot of teams were coming asking how we succeeded.
Yeah.
And at least I think the ratios have dropped a bit since
It
then.
dropped quite a
And I
bit.
don't know quite what's happened.
Yeah.
So that's certainly one thing that I noticed is that at one point we were being able to pull in a lot of girls.
And we were pulling them, they were in the engineering side as well,
Right.
a lot of them, not all business.
Yeah, we used to have a lot of
Quite
girls
a
on the engineering
girls.
side.
Yeah.
And at least, yeah, two girl presidents were both engineering side.
Oh. Yeah.
Laura and Carter were both into the engineering
And
side.
Shannon.
Oh, sorry, and Shannon. Three.
And Dear.
Sorry, I take that back, all of them.
Yeah. Sorry.
A
So
lot of
yes,
them.
we had a lot of engineering coming through the girls' side. A lot of girls coming through the engineering side. That seems to have tailed off a bit. It doesn't seem to be as much as a focus as it used to be.
Yeah.
Trying to think of other things that have changed. Obviously, the size has bounced up and down over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, the demographics, I suppose, this probably reflects the school and probably the gifted program within the school, even though not everyone is gifted. I mean, that's not a nice way of putting it, is it? Because everyone is gifted in their own special ways, but not everyone is part of the gifted program.
Yeah.
But I think more there are, the way that has changed over the years has perhaps reflected it a bit more.
I see. I see.
Yeah, we used to get a very heavy percentage of people from the gifted program.
Yeah.
So, are there any other notable changes for the club since the beginning of time, I guess?
Noticeable changes, beginning of time. I was looking at the T-shirts because I've got a whole pile of those. I think I'll make a display and put it up in Ivanhoe, because I showed you mine. I'll show you again.
Yeah.
So this is one of the early days.
And this is our merch, which you
That's your
can buy.
merch. Yeah, I've got some other merch too.
Yeah.
But the t-shirt, the actual club logo has gone from very kind of fancy, elaborate,
Yeah.
to much more simplified. I mean, if you take today's logo, it's very simplified, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a gear with a dog in it.
Yeah. And a few years ago, it was a gear with a dog in it and some flames through it, and the dog had his little bib with his tools in and so on. And he's lost all that.
Yeah, it's a more simplified and
Yeah,
modern design.
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. And I think if we put up a display like that,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see that change.
Yeah, that'd be really nice. And like
Yeah,
if people can sacrifice some of their old shirts too, we could have like a shirt row, I guess,
yeah.
of like
Well, I think
all
we
the
could.
evolution of
I think
shirts.
we've probably got almost all of them in our house that we can
Yeah,
donate to the project.
donate to the project. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
The other one we were going to,
I'm going to show you.
yeah,
Is that going to? What's that?
does that show up?
Ah, that's the FRC. Wait, is that for Worlds?
That one would
No,
have. Well, you can figure out what it
I'm
was
trying to
for.
remember that. I think this
That was,
was when we got through to Worlds.
and this was another trip to Worlds.
Nice.
Well, these weren't from. These were
No,
if you.
won the
So I think
finals.
this one was we lost in the final,
Oh,
whereas the silver one was we won in the final. We went to Worlds.
I see, I see.
But we went to Worlds then too.
Did we?
Is that a gold? Is that golden? Was that is that bronze?
I think it's
That's
bronze.
no, it's gold
No,
because we've got a
Gold.
bronze one there.
there's three.
Ah,
There's two different colours.
we have all three. You know,
And
it's for a
Different
collection
different
years.
years.
for different years. All right.
But there used to be, because this is, okay,
Right.
2008, they used to give medals on ribbons out for different awards as well, whereas now it's more, you remember the plaques that we've won?
Yeah, we have some plaques.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that's how things have changed, within First and what they do.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So yeah. So that 2008, which was was that the first year or second year?
Second, I think
Second
the
year.
first year.
We must have got an award that year. Don't remember what it was, and everybody in the team would have got one of those medals because of that.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I
So
guess first got like a big budget increase as well, so they were able to give more in awards.
I think it's probably a decrease nowadays.
Yeah.
Decrease.
Well, they've got so many more people.
They do, yes.
Yeah,
I
they
mean, if
have a
you
lot more
so
people.
that do you know that the team number sort of represents how long you've been in First for?
Yeah, because like right now there's like I think it's like 732 or whatever like the
Right.
new teams are.
Yeah. And
So
so
like
we're one of the older teams.
we're the oldest team. You know, we have
Not
we have the
oldest, but
we're the wise teams.
well, yeah. The
Yes.
only trouble is that it's, because we all or you all change out. A lot
Yeah.
of our wisdom doesn't build, it gets
Oh
lost
no.
or
That's why we have these
reinvented.
podcasts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But
the
yeah,
wisdom.
so you will tend to find that the competitions there's and a lot of the new rookie teams will be told if you want to ask a question, go find a team that's less than 2,000 and ask them
Yeah.
because it is kind of expected when you turn up at the competition. If you're one of the early teams, you still have some knowledge kept around, and people will send other teams to you.
The secrets, the scrolls of secrets
That's
that
it.
we have on
Right.
us.
Is that if so? Sort of thing that will happen is that like one of the inspectors will send a team to us to say, "Oh, you're using the same stuff as that team. You need some extra help? Go over there."
Yeah. That's like I guess that's nice
Yeah.
to like it's a great thing to like meet the other teams as well, create the cooperation, I guess. 'Cause we
Right.
want to
And
work.
I would have said to some extent, we're doing that less than we used to at some point.
Mm,
So it is actually something we probably should think about doing more of. What we used to do at some of the competitions is the people who sit in the pits but cycle around the pits. They don't, because you can't have everybody in the pits at the same time. Is the
yeah.
people who aren't spending the time in the pits, they go off around all the other pits and see if anybody needs any help.
Mm,
So we used to have there were some competitions where would have people in half a dozen other pits helping them work on their robot.
oh, yeah. We should do that more. That might be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
A lot.
It gets you several things. One of them is the teams recognize your name.
Ah, yes.
You get to learn how other stuff is put together,
Yeah.
because some of it is they just need a hand with tools and things, and you get a chance to learn more about the robot.
Yeah.
And it's not just the robot; is programming team should be doing this as well.
Yeah. That's nice. Yeah, that'd be a lot. That'd be a lot of fun. Just like learning what other robots like how they're put together for ideas for like if something breaks on our robot or like whatever.
Yeah,
Right.
because right now we've lost pretty well 2 years of that, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Because we made one competition last year
Yeah, we
that
got.
some people went to. So we've got a lot of people who haven't been to competition at all.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of people that haven't seen Ivanhoe at all as well.
true. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like haven't even seen our robot in real life, so that's a bummer. I can't wait till like we open up schools again in like April
Oh,
or
yeah.
like May, and then everyone's like, I guess not everyone's gonna rush in at once, but they're gonna come in on their own time and take a
Maybe
look.
we'll have a meet and greet the robot.
Yes, meet and greet the
Yeah.
robot.
You can bring it outside.
Yeah,
Meet and greet the robot outside.
that'd be
It'd be
nice.
fun.
Just
Yeah.
the robot just rolls by everyone. That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Don't know
And
what
they do a
state it's
salute,
in.
salute the robot.
Yeah. He may be a bit rusted by now.
Yeah. And also like last year, even though we had like our one competition, we still had to like maintain like not social distancing, but like we were very aware of like
Yeah.
COVID and stuff, so we weren't really that involved with other people, I guess. We tried to stay within our robotics group, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah. So
I
that
can
also
remember.
did not help with that.
Yeah, I remember somebody sitting at our table at lunchtime from another team, and I was like, "Hang on a minute, are you healthy? Don't sit near us."
Are you
Yeah,
okay, sir?
yeah. Oh, yeah. What
Yeah,
a year
that has changed a lot.
it has, hasn't it?
So have you in your experience have you guys seen anything or learned anything that like surprised you about like our team, like students or like robotics in general?
Gosh.
Well, I can think of something that I guess I got a big surprise when I first started. So no,
All right.
I got used to it now, but the first couple of years it was a really big shock.
Yeah.
My dad was an engineer, so I grew up around tools.
Yeah.
So I got a shock the first year that I started going through, and I'd ask a student, "Can you use a screwdriver and tighten that up, please?" And they didn't know how to use a screwdriver
uh,
or any tool for that matter, and that was a big ah. If you think about it, my dad, as I said, my dad was an aircraft engineer. He just did everything himself. So I just grew up around tools and knew how to use them.
yeah.
And then to realize there's a lot of students around who just basically never use tools, ever.
Yeah. I guess robotics gives them an opportunity to use especially power tools, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like the bandsaw and our CNC that we might get.
We
Yeah.
might, yes. Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
I mean, that has been one of that was in those early days. We spent a lot of time because I used to teach people your age before we moved here. And then I worked with, young people until I got involved in robotics, and I keep going with that. So I've been around teenagers most of my life. And
I don't know if that's
this,
a good thing or a bad thing.
well, I'm still there and I'm still loving it. So
All
it's
right,
maybe
I
it's a
guess
good
it's a good
thing.
thing.
Yeah, it is from my point of view.
Yeah.
But Mr. Moore would he'd come back and he'd say, "Oh," and I'd say, "They're teenagers." What do you expect, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And trying to put it into perspective. And that's what he's referring to. And then a few years later, I mean, not so long ago, he's saying that exact same thing when I'm complaining about some of not the robotics team, but other kids that I work with. And he says, they're teenagers, what do you expect? And it's like this whole flip reversal, which is really quite funny. So I have been, I don't know if it's surprised, but I'm always impressed with how well the majority of the robotics team work, their work ethic, their leadership abilities. Since I've started doing the leadership training for you
Yeah.
guys, and I've watched you take that on board and then sort of use it, it's quite incredible seeing what you're all capable of. And
Yeah.
it's just you come in at what, 14?
I was 15, I think.
Okay, but I mean in general, 14,
Yeah,
15 year
14,
olds,
15. Yeah.
and you're still kids.
Yes.
And then you develop through the team and you get more and more responsibility, and I see that taking it on, taking initiatives until you're going to be 18-year-old young ladies and young men and so on, and just going out there into the world and doing great things.
Yeah,
It's
because in
just
ninth grade I was very awkward, more awkward than I am now, which is I know it's hard to believe, but yeah. And then I would not be like doing a podcast or anything, but
right.
like definitely like robotics has like broken me out of my shell, I guess, made me more want to like do more stuff
Yeah,
like this.
I mean it's like a safe place to fail, isn't it? You can
Yeah,
try things, you can see whether they work or not, and at the end of the day it's not a disaster, hopefully, if it doesn't work.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then as Mr. Moore said, you like failure is almost like expected
Yeah,
almost. So it's like even if you fail, it's completely okay because that was like there was a high percentage chance that might happen. So
but it's also a learning experience. You
yeah,
learn more by failing than you
exactly.
do by doing something safe and something that you already know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hard part to learn is how to
Oh no, Mr. Moore, your voice is
no, I was just saying the hard bit that I've seen you learn over the years is when a failure happens, how to question what went correct and what went wrong.
mm,
I would have said a lot of people, as they mature, the first thing happens is if something goes wrong, it was all failed. There
yeah.
was no piece of it that was correct. And as you get older, you start saying, pull it apart. Which pieces actually worked and which piece was actually the problem? Not You don't throw everything away for the sake of the failure at the end, because a lot of pieces probably work correctly.
Yeah.
And that's a good exercise that I think robotics starts teaching you is how to do that correctly.
Yeah. It's just debugging, right?
Yeah,
Right. But it's not just it's kind of debugging in more than just programming. It's how do you
Yeah. Yeah.
if a robot mechanics fails, how do you work? Was the design wrong? Did we build it wrong? Did we pick the wrong material? Even when you're thinking about leadership, you can do the same thing. Is the end result failed, but did most of what you were trying to do succeed, and one piece of it caused the whole thing to fail? So you don't
Mm,
have to change everything. You have to find the one piece that's wrong and correct that.
yeah. That's a very important lesson that you take away from robotics.
Yeah.
yeah, I think so.
And that process is very useful in like everything. Especially I use it in my essays all the time. Like
Right.
I get a bad grade or like not a grade I want, and then I'm like, all right, I don't have to redo everything. I can just figure out where it went wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll actually see that even in the first level. If you look at the rules, sometimes when you look at the changes in the rules and look at why they changed, like one I can remember is one year they got very, very keen on inspecting how your battery was held into the robot.
The battery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason was actually one of the competitions we were at. It wasn't us, it was another team's battery fell out the robot,
Oh.
landed upside down, and went up in flames.
Oh
And
no.
so the following year, the inspectors were really hot on inspecting how securely your batteries were held into the robot.
I see. Oh no. Was the robot okay in the end? That went up.
There was a lot of people helping them put the robot back together again.
I see.
It took them, I think, all afternoon, but the following day they were back on the field.
It's good. They better have used more duct tape to hold it on.
Yeah. Well, the big lesson was don't put the battery in the robot upside down because
Uh,
that's what they did.
oh
So the
no.
terminals were pointing down, so when it slipped, it
So it just
landed on the
landed.
terminals.
I thought the thing flipped when it was falling, but no, they
No,
just placed it upside down.
yeah,
Wow.
and at one point you saw the robot driving around with his battery following
Drag.
behind, held on by the cables.
That just gives me like anxiety thinking of that.
Yeah, there's been a few because that was the recent one. The frisbee one of the frisbee throwers basically blew up on the field.
Okay.
So, well, think about it: is what a lot of teams were doing was they were building frisbee throwers by putting the frisbee against the wheel, spin a
Yeah.
wheel, and push the frisbee against it. How many wheels do we have that are meant to spin at 10,000 RPM? All
Uh,
our drive wheels don't spin anything
no.
like that fast.
Yeah.
So what happens when they spin that fast?
A lot of bad things happen to the motor.
Well,
A
I
lot of
said
heat.
in this particular one, the wheel just shattered and sprayed pieces of wheel all over the field, the
Oh,
stands. It went everywhere.
okay. It was basically a shotgun. It turned into a shotgun.
Yeah.
All right.
Nobody got hurt that year, but it was quite a bang when it went.
Yeah. Dang. All right. Before we wrap this up, I have one final question to ask you guys, and that is, are there any specific moments that have reminded you why you decided to mentor robotics, or why you decided to become a mentor?
Okay, probably this year. I mean, I see it quite. I'm reminded all the time because it's one of these things. If it's not fun, I mean, I'm not paid to be there, so if it's not fun, why would I be there?
Yeah.
So it is always fun, but to watch the maybe the lessons that I've tried to impart in you, then see them being taken on board and used and passed down to other team members. That's the kind of thing that inspires me to keep doing this. That I feel as though I'm hopefully making a difference somewhere.
Yeah.
Right, and for me, it's similar. I just thought about being able to look at a problem and to take it apart and look at what was correct and what wasn't correct. Seeing the students take that on board and start using that, starting to be able to peel a problem apart and say what makes sense with this and what doesn't make sense. That's the seeing somebody take that on board and use it for real is what really says would be that's good. Can't think of the right word, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us today, right? I learned so much about robotics, like our team, that I did not know before, and also about FRC, like a robot turning into a shotgun. Like I
Yeah,
never thought that would ever happen, but I guess it did. So
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. And thank you the people listening or watching to this for joining us all the way to the end. So if you guys have any questions or any suggestions, just email us at I think roboticsassemble podcast at saintsrobotics.com. and go to saintsrobotics.com to buy our merch. So yeah,
Right.
basically it.
This is why
Uh,
I hold up mine.
yeah, hold up the merch
Yeah,
to
I
buy.
didn't bring it. I have some.
All right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, to end it, we're gonna do the same thing that we did before, but with robotics break. So on three, I guess. 1, 2, 3. Robotics
Robotics
break.
break.